Hello, students. If we haven't met before, my name is Jana Williamson, or Miss Jana as my students call me. Today we're going to go over the Level 9 terms for the Illinois AIM syllabus. If you are looking for other levels, I'd encourage you to look in the description of this video. And don't forget, students, if you're my students, you can practice these terms with Quizlet, and I will link that below in the description as well. All right, so let's get started with our Level 9 terms. I'm actually going to start with reviewing some old terms because these are the ones that I find my students forget. So we have 4 old terms at the beginning here. A motive or motif is a short, melodic, or rhythmic pattern that recurs. So it's the little nugget of music that you can remember after you've heard a piece. The most famous motif, I think, is Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Da 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 da. That's an example of a motif. It's not a full melody. It's a really short nugget that you can very easily remember. Repetition is the immediate restatement of a musical idea or a motive repeated in the same voice. So if my right hand plays da 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 da, and then my right hand plays it again, da 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 da, that's repetition. Imitation is the immediate restatement of a melodic idea or motive in another voice. So if my right hand plays da 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 da, and then my left hand plays da 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 down an octave, that is imitation. I always tell my students to remember this. If you have siblings, if you have a younger brother or sister, they might have imitated you before. So if you say, "Mom, can I go outside?" and your little brother goes, "Mom, can I go outside?" They are imitating you. And that's what happens in music. Another voice imitates what one instrument or one hand has already done. A sequence is the immediate restatement of a melodic idea repeated in the same voice at a higher or lower pitch. So this is what actually happens in Beethoven's symphony at the beginning. The violins play da 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 da, and then they play da 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 da. They took that motive and went down a step. All right, now on to our level 9 terms specifically. Animato, repeat after me. Animato. Animato simply means lively or animated. It usually refers to a tempo, so a lively tempo. Counterpoint or a contrapuntal piece, those are the same words, just one is an adjective and one is a noun. So counterpoint refers to 2 or more melodies sounding at the same time. Your Baroque pieces are usually written in a contrapuntal style, not with chords in one hand and a melody in the other. They both have their own individual lines. Enharmonic refers to 2 notes sounding the same but written differently. For instance, D sharp equals E flat. You can go through your piano and find all the different enharmonic notes. F sharp is the same as G flat. B flat is the same as A sharp. You can go through and find all those. Those are the enharmonic notes. A cadence is a combination of chords used at the end of a phrase, section, or composition. That's all it is. A cadence is just a group of chords that we find usually at the end of something. So now we have specific types of cadences, and I'm sure you have realized that in your pieces, a lot of the time we use the same groups of chords. The most common one is we end a piece on 5-1. So if you're in C major, G or G7 going to C, G to C. That's a very, very common way to end a piece. So that's an example of a cadence. Now we're going to talk about specific cadences. So an authentic cadence is the one I just mentioned. It's 5-1. On your AIM definition, it's a little more complicated how it looks, but I have written out a cadence that is some version of 5-1. You can do this in a major key or a minor key. So it could be 5V, capital V to capital I, or capital V to lowercase I, meaning minor 1. Or it can be 5-7. So it can include that 7th in there, 5-7-1. A plagal cadence is very similar, but a little bit different. A plagal cadence is a cadence that is some version of 4-1. Again, this can be major or minor. That's what the uppercase and lowercase mean. But plagal cadence is 4-1. My favorite is the deceptive cadence. A deceptive cadence is a cadence that is a series of chords ending on 6. Typically, it comes from the 5 chord right before it, but a deceptive cadence, you usually think it's going to go to 1 and you're going to have a nice little ending, and then suddenly you're surprised because they fooled you and they went to 6 instead. These are usually pretty easy to hear because they do sound a little bit surprising. And our last cadence, a half cadence, is a phrase ending using 5 or 5/7 as the final chord. So again, it feels very unfinished. We think we're going to land somewhere, but we end on the dominant. And so we haven't actually finished. All right, moving on. Marcato. Repeat after me, marcato. Marcato means accented or stressed. Modulation. A modulation is a key change within a composition, within a piece. This happens all the time in sonatinas. If you've played a sonatina or a sonata in G major, for instance, you will modulate to D to go to the dominant. It doesn't mean there's a key change, key signature change. We won't have the extra key signature. It just means you're suddenly going to be seeing a lot of C sharps. Whatever the modulation is, you're going to see a lot of accidentals. It's simply a key change within that piece. Now we have a couple of different types of non-harmonic tones, but first we need to just define what a non-harmonic tone is. A non-harmonic tone is a note that is not part of the chord or harmony. So if you're in F major, the normal notes you would have would be F, A, C if you're playing an F major chord, right? So any other note is going to be a non-harmonic tone. A G does not belong in an F major chord. And so you might have it there, and we have to describe, if we're analyzing this, why do we have that note there? Well, it's some sort of non-harmonic tone. So let's talk about what the types are. Our first type is called a passing tone. A passing tone is a non-harmonic tone which fills in a melodic skip. So again, if I'm in that F major context and I've got F major harmonies going on, I might have a melody that goes F, G, A. The G is the passing tone. F and A belong to the harmony. The G is the non-harmonic tone. So I have passed from F to A by using that G. A neighboring tone, on the other hand, is where you are on a harmonic tone, such as the F, and you go up to G and come back to F. Or the reverse, you could be on A, go down to G, and come back up to A. So let's look at the actual definition for neighboring tone. A neighboring tone is a non-harmonic tone occurring a step, above or below a harmonic tone and then returning to the same pitch. You can remember this because let's say you go over to your neighbor's house to borrow something. You need an egg to make cookies. So you walk over to your neighbor's house and you come right back. That's what the notes do, from F to G, back to F. Opus means work. It's the numbering system of a composer's works, usually chronological. So the Beethoven Sonata Opus 2, number 1, is the first Beethoven's piano sonata that he published. You will see OP dot after many, many pieces. And that's just telling you this is how we catalog their works. Usually, not always, but usually if you see a high opus number like 100, that's going to be written later on in a composer's life than a low opus number like opus 5. Ostinato, this is one of my favorite music words. Ostinato is a pattern that is continuously repeated, often in the bass or often in your left hand at the piano. You can remember this by remembering the word obstinate, which means the same thing as stubborn. If your mom has ever called you stubborn, then you know what that means. You really want to do something and you're going to repeat. You're going to ask her over and over and over again until she lets you do it. An ostinato is a stubborn little pattern that keeps on going, keeps repeating itself. Parallel keys are a major and minor key with the same tonic, G major and G minor. They are not the same as relative keys. Remember, relatives share the same key signature, so G major and E minor are relative major and minor. G major and G minor are parallel. Rondo. Rondo is a form in music using a recurring theme that alternates with one or more other themes. Usually it is A, B, go back and play A again, then play C, something new, and then go back and play A again. It's a very fun form because everybody can remember the A section because they've heard it so many times. Rounded binary is also another form. Rounded binary is A-B form with a return of all or part of A at the end of the B section. Rounded binary has the repeat signs like binary. So A, repeat A, B, repeat B, but at the end of B, there's some music that looks and sounds just like A. This is a tricky one to find, so practice finding this with your teacher because it can be really tricky. This is one of those questions that my students sometimes mess up on their exams because they just think binary as opposed to rounded binary. Rubato. Rubato is a slight flexibility of tempo. We use a lot of rubato in our romantic era music. Subito. Subito means suddenly. You oftentimes see this with dynamics. So subito piano means you've been loud for a while and all of a sudden we're going to get piano. We're not going to do a diminuendo. It's just going to be subito piano, very suddenly. Tritone. A tritone is the interval of an augmented fourth or diminished fifth, and it is the distance of 3 whole steps. An example on the piano would be F to B. It's a very ugly sounding interval. In fact, long ago in history, they called it the devil's interval. Try finding some tritones on your piano and listen to how they sound. F to B, you can also try C to F sharp or many other tritones on your piano. Good luck with your level 9 test. I hope this video has been helpful. Don't forget to practice with Quizlet, and you can use my other videos to review your old terms as well.